ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायशो भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतेरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, 328:19. स्थितं रजन्तम् आसीनं शयानं वा गुहाशयं प्रेक्षाणीये हितं ध्यायेत् शुद्धभावेन चेतसा. Thus, always merged in devotional service, the yogi visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, or sitting within him. For the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. The process of meditating on the form of the Supreme Person of Godhead within oneself and the process of chanting the glories and pastimes of the Lord are the same. The only difference is that hearing and fixing the mind on the pastimes of the Lord is easier than visualizing the form of the Lord within one's heart. Because as soon as one begins to think of the Lord, especially in this age, the mind becomes disturbed. And due to so much agitation, the process of seeing the Lord within the mind is interrupted. When there is sound vibrated, praising the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, however, one is forced to hear. That hearing process. Okay, so please focus on this. When there is a sound vibrated, praising the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, however, one is forced to hear. That hearing process enters into the mind, and the practice of yoga is automatically performed. For example, even a child can hear and derive the benefit of meditating on the pastimes of the Lord simply by listening to a reading from the Bhagavatam that describes the Lord as he is going to the pasturing ground with his cows and friends. Hearing includes applying the mind. In this age of Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya has recommended that one should always engage in chanting and hearing Bhagavad Gita. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Prabhupada is saying that he recommended that one should always chant and hear Bhagavad Gita. The Lord also says that the Mahatmas or great souls always engage in the process of chanting the glories of the Lord. And just by hearing, others derive the same benefit. Yoga necessitates meditation on the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, whether he is standing, moving, lying down, etc. Very deep purport. And this always merged in devotional service. Merged in devotional service. Mm. So that means all the time engaged consciously in devotional service, which is merging. Yogi visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, or sitting within him. For the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. So this is the process of meditating. So Prabhupada is very clearly saying that in this age, it's very difficult to think of the Lord. Mind becomes disturbed. Meaning we are not doing any shravanam. And if we simply sit and want to think about the Lord, the mind becomes disturbed. Now, of course, I mean, we should also understand this. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhav Mad Bhakto, We actually have to reach this stage of being able to be completely absorbed, thinking of the Lord. But Prabhupada is saying that one cannot directly enter this process. One cannot try to start thinking of the Lord because the mind becomes disturbed and mind is just goes here and there. So the meditation or dhyana is broken. So we need a process which we can engage in easily, by way of which purification happens. So once the purification happens, then automatically the mind becomes fixed in thinking of the Lord. So the purification happens through the hearing process. That is the reason why there is so much emphasis given to hearing. So, but how should that hearing process be? That hearing process should enter the mind. The Prabhupada is saying that hearing includes applying the mind. Now, one is if one is not hearing attentively, that is what this means. Applying the mind means one has to hear attentively. Unfortunately, we don't hear attentively for we cannot even hearing process is disturbed. Right? See, just see our difficulty. Meditating on the Lord is difficult. So the solution for that is hearing. Now, even if hearing is disturbed, uh, so it's a very helpless kind of situation. Right? So the hearing, we have to put all energy behind hearing, and the hearing process, whatever we are hearing, should enter the mind. And when it enters the mind, it automatically purifies. So Prabhupada is saying even a child can hear and derive the benefit of meditating on the pastimes simply by listening to a reading from the Bhagavatam that describes the Lord as he is going to the pasturing grounds. Now, we should not think that hearing about the Lord only means hearing from 10th canto. So Prabhupada is saying in this age of Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya has recommended one should always engage in chanting and hearing Bhagavad Gita. So one is we can also, like I said in one of the classes, we can also do chant the
हाँ ये वाली
verses.
उधर उधर रख दे सुन उधर नहीं
Hare
बाहर उधर
Krishna.
गेट के बाहर उधर लिफ्ट के पास
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Oh, sorry, Prabhuji. I didn't realize. I usually never keep my. I'm really
Yeah, that's
sorry.
okay, no
Please
problem.
forgive.
So we should always engage in, we can even engage in chanting the verses. Right, because even chanting the verses of Bhagavad Gita is purifying. See, the whole idea is the mind has to become purified of material. It has to be, there's so much of material contamination in the mind. So the mind cannot think about the Lord right now. So that is the reason why the emphasis is given to chanting, hearing. So when we hear, then the mind becomes purified. So which is the reason I keep saying that if we are doing regular hearing, reading of Srila Prabhupada's books, and if our mind is still not getting purified, that means there is some problem. Because the hearing process has to result in purification if we apply the mind during hearing. Of course, we should not think that, oh, no, 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 I'm actually hearing attentively, still nothing is happening. That means the process is not working. No, that only means that we have a lot of kachara from previous lives. So there's too much of garbage. And so it's just taking little more time for the garbage to clear. But the effect of actually hearing, reading Srila Prabhupada's books is that the purification will happen. When the purification happens, the mind can automatically think about the Lord. Automatically. And that thinking also, of course, it depends on hearing. So whatever we have heard should automatically come into our minds. But for that, the mind has to be free of material things, material thoughts. Because the mind can only do think on one aspect at a time. Either it can think about material things or it can think about spiritual things. So that is, this whole purport is just high emphasizing the need for effective hearing and chanting. And then only we will actually make progress to come to the stage of uh, mm, dhyana, smaranam, remembering. But the chanting process has to naturally result in that smaranam. Prabhupada says naturally when you chant the names of Radha and Krishna, when you chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, naturally Krishna's name we are chanting with attention. Krishna's form should come, Krishna's quality should come, Krishna's pastime should come, everything should come naturally. But for all that, it depends on how well we are actually doing the process of hearing and chanting. Only then Smaranam will happen. But Smaranam should happen. And yoga necessitates meditation. But in Bhakti Yoga, especially in this yoga, just by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra and hearing attentively, we will come to the stage of Smaranam. And that Smaranam, yeah, standing, moving, lying down, which is basically the pastimes of the Lord. So we should always apply our mind. One is hearing attentively, the other is applying the mind. Applying the mind means that we also are thinking about what we are hearing. We're also trying to see what changes should I make in my life now that I'm hearing these things. Prabhupada is clearly saying that chanting and hearing Bhagavad Gita, which means that it's not just pastime hearing. It's actually hearing Tattva. Because there's no Leela in Bhagavad Gita. Mhm. So when we hear the Tattva and then we think about how I apply, what do I learn from this? How do I apply it in my life? That is when the purification happens. The application is very, very important. Otherwise, it will just be hearing from one ear and leaving from the other. If it doesn't enter the heart, for which we have to hear attentively. So again, emphasis on hearing, chanting, quality hearing and chanting is very, very critical for us to be able to make progress. These things have been discussed repeatedly. Is there any question on this, or are there any challenges, difficulties? Of course, I mean the whole hearing has to be done when we are most energetic in the day, right? We cannot keep chanting and hearing to the last part of the day, right? So ideally, the morning program. The solution is morning program. As early as we can get up, chant, do our reading like we are doing now with applying our minds. We can also uh, have another, maybe, if you're doing half an hour, 40 minutes, if you have another half an hour for reading ourselves, that is even better. But we should not keep these things for the evening, post our day. Rest of the day is over, then we should not engage in this chanting hearing. It should be the first thing that we do in our day. And then automatically the effect will be seen. Tasmillabdha padam chittam sarvavayava samstitam vilakshayikatra samyujyat Ange Bhagavato Munihi. In fixing his mind on the eternal form of the Lord, the yogi should not take a collective view of all his limbs, but should fix the mind on each individual limb of the Lord. The word Muni is very significant. Muni means one who is very expert in mental speculation or in thinking, feeling, and willing. So we're all Munis because we are expert in thinking, feeling, willing. The material platform. He's not mentioned here as a devotee or yogi. Those who try to meditate on the form of the Lord are called Munis or less intelligent. Whereas those who render actual service to the Lord are called Bhakti yogis. So if we are just trying to meditate on the form of the Lord and not rendering service, that's no use. That's less intelligent. The thought process described below is for the education of the Muni. In order to convince the yogi that the absolute truth or supreme personality of God is never impersonal at any time, the whole may sometimes be impersonal. Therefore, it is recommended here that one first think of his lotus feet, then his ankles, then his thighs, then the waist, then the chest, then the neck, and then the face, and so on. One should begin from the lotus feet and gradually rise to the upper limbs of the transcendental body of the Lord. So, this is the process of seeing the Lord. We should start from the lotus feet and then move upwards. And then so the whole idea here is to think of the Lord as a whole may sometimes be impersonal. Okay, little bit maybe I'll explain my realization here. See, when we start, uh, again, I'm going back to our Mayapur trip, right? And when we see Radha Madhav, uh, uh, and they're so nicely well decorated, so beautiful ornaments, flowers, etc. Now, when we start seeing the Lord from His lotus feet, and we have to absorb ourselves in seeing the Lord, in seeing the Lord's lotus feet, and then we have to see, okay, what are the features that I'm seeing? So the Lord's bottom of His lotus feet is red in color. Um, then there is some kind of you know drawing or some picture on the upper part of his lotus feet. Then he's wearing anklet, ankle bells. Then there is a flower, some kind of a flower garland around his ankle. Then we look at his ankle, the calf muscles. Then we come to his dhoti, and then we see, okay, what is the color of the dhoti, what is the decoration, what is the whatever patterns on his dhoti, what designs are there on his dhoti, what color they are, etc., etc. So when we start going through, step by step from lotus feet up to the lotus face, there are so many details that should be observed, and these details should be observed. Um, and that's why Prabhupada is saying if you don't observe these details, then it might just look like impersonal, meaning and there are no details. There's just one form, and then impersonalists say, no, no, that form is also not true. It's actually just some, circle of energy. So no detail, no detail. But the how devotees dress Krishna is so much of details. Radha and Krishna are so beautifully dressed in Goloka Vrindavan. Right? So the details are very, very important. Then it also becomes easy for us to remember that no, no, there's no way he's impersonal. He's so beautifully dressed up. How can he be impersonal? So this absorption on each and every individual limb is very, very important. And then the beauty of the whole form of the Lord becomes fixed in our heart, right? And then meditation on the form becomes easy. But for us to be able to do this, we need to spend time in front of the deities, looking at them, etc. Now, if we are not in the mode of goodness, we will not want to do that because we are just busy, busy, busy. Then that is the reason why chanting is more important, because irrespective, we do chanting every day. We might not have not everybody might have an opportunity to see the Lord every day in the temple, right? So we chant every day. But eventually, when we come to the temple and we see the Lord, this amount of absorption is required. So we should fix our mind, the individual form, on the individual limbs of the Lord. Mm. And again, also other thing is it's not that we whole day we just remain meditating on the form of the Lord and we don't do any devotional service. So that also Prabhupada is making clear, saying that we have to render devotional service, we have to render actual service. Just meditating on the form of the Lord is less intelligent, because as soon as we think about the Lord and Lord being personal, then we immediate thought has to come. Oh, how can I serve Him? Hmm. And the service can also, I mean, we can even meditate on the service. Okay, maybe I'm want to do some nice garlands for the Lord, maybe some nice dress, maybe something else. But these things have to come naturally. If you think, if you look at the Lord with the mindset of enjoying, then service attitude will not come. If you look at the Lord with the mood of service, with considering that He is the master, we are the servants, and then we glorify His form, His beauty, then naturally we should come to the stage of rendering devotional service. We are not those munis who are just mentally speculating. We are seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, and then immediately the thought of serving should come. And serving the Lord, and like we read, it's also serving devotees. So all these should become integral part of our existence in bhakti. Mm. Is that we always remain in this mood of being a servant. So that is a result of actually good quality chanting, hearing, um, seeing the beautiful form of the Lord. All of this should result in service attitude, in wanting to serve. Many times I see like devotees come for any kind of program or festival. Most devotees don't try to engage in any kind of service. They're just simply sitting, talking to each other. But we should try to find out, can I do something? Can I do something in the service of the Lord on this very auspicious day of celebration? So this service mode is very, very important. We can also serve Vaishnavas. We can serve other jivas. We might see somebody trying to walk up the temple stairs and is finding it very difficult. Uh, Maybe we can help that person, or maybe we can guide that person to take the lift. Whatever it is, right? The point is that we should not be in enjoying mood. Festival means serving mood, and happiness is comes at the end by default. Happiness comes at the end by default. So this actual rendering, actual service is also very, very important. Do not think that oh, festival means I've come to enjoy. That is very neophyte mindset. As we make progress, it's about service mindset. In fact, in the Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, Shivram Maharaj says that as we make progress in devotional service, normally we let people who are, suppose say we are standing in a line for prasadam. What do? We see some senior devotee coming, we let that person first go. But actually, what should the senior devotee do? Senior devotee should let others go first and go and join the line at the end, is what he says. Saying that this is the mode actually of service. Saying that why am I going in front? They're all new and they need more mercy, they need more compassion, more care. So let them stand in front. Let them go on prasadam first. Maybe they don't have the spiritual strength to wait for more time, but we do the other way around. So we should learn actually the whole process is purification. Purification means being fixed in the mood of being a servant. So these things are very, very important to understand. Okay, so maybe we'll do this on Monday, because There are a series of verses, and this will actually help us to meditate on the beautiful form of the Lord and the very nice description of so many details, right? See, like for example, marks of like lotus feet, a thunderbolt, gold banner, and lotus, his ruby nails. So there is a lot of beautiful description with nice, very nice adjectives, which actually help us to absorb ourselves in the details. So these verses are about the details, and we have to get into details. So these verses are very nice. There are few verses which describe the overall form of the Lord, as seen by the yogi within his heart. But this is good to. Uh, I mean, when I read these verses, I realized that there's so much of detail that one has to observe when we see the form of the Lord. So this is nice for meditation. So we can meditate on these verses starting Monday. Okay, so I'll stop here. If there are any questions, comments, feel free. Okay, there's nothing, then I'll end. Bhagavatam ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Prabhu, I have no question, but I would like to say an observation.
Hmm.
Uh, since yesterday, when I'm listening to your classes, it's a different. I feel it's very different after visiting. I mean, after coming to the yatra with you
Okay.
all. Uh, it's so different, Prabhu. Maybe the level of understanding before I came to yatra and now is it seems more easier now.
Okay,
Just
very
an
good. That is the
observation.
power of Dham. Power of
Yes,
Dham.
Prabhu. Even
Right.
chanting, I used to find it difficult.
Hmm.
Maybe from sixth round to 12th round, it was like, oh my God, when will this get over? But now it
Hmm.
is not like that.
Very nice.
It
Good.
goes on and on.
That is the reason we want devotees to come on yatra. The yatra is so powerful. The effect of yatra, it remains, and we should hold on to this. Sometimes because we tend to get materially involved too much, then we lose this. This is the nectar. This is the nectar of Krishna consciousness, what you're experiencing, and we should somehow beg for mercy to hold on to this. Sometimes after years like this, we keep going to the yatras and we think, okay, I went to the yatra and I came back. No, but it has to be the same mood. Like we are neophytes, we are new, and we should always feel. The more we absorb ourselves in the yatra, in Shravanam, Kirtanam, in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, that remains, and it should remain. Actually, this is the whole idea. Yeah, very nice. Nice to hear.
Yes, Prabhu. Even I keep, uh, after coming back from yatra, I am praying, Lord, that this mood should continue always forever.
Yeah, yeah, good. Lord will reciprocate. Nice. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
No,
Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll end here. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय समवेत गौरव भक्तवृंद की जय मात्रा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna Prabhu.